The global ocean covers 71% of the surface of our planet, holding within a realm as boundless as it is mysterious. Here, beneath the shimmering surface, lies a bustling oasis teeming with life, where every creature plays a vital role in the intricate dance of survival. But 90% of the ocean lies in a place that sits quietly out of sight. In the depths below, the ocean plays host to a far stranger realm, the deep sea. This place is a world within our world, a place of silence, emptiness, and darkness. One where wonders are found drifting in a formless void. At the deep's upper limit lies the Twilight Zone, where the diminished light of the sun still holds mastery over its processes. It stretches from 200 meters to a kilometer down beneath the waves, but with the average depth of the ocean being almost 4 times deeper, and the deepest known point found at a depth of 11,000 meters, the Twilight Zone is little more than a sliver. The ocean's subsequent zones each command a greater expanse. The Midnight Zone, or Bathypelagic, stretches to 4 kilometers down, a place so deep that the direct influences of the sun, the waves, and the tides are not felt, creating a habitat that has barely changed at all in millions of years. At its lower limits, the abyssal begins, which hosts a great desert of silt on the deep ocean floor called the abyssal plain, a realm of mud dwellers. At just a few sites around the world, the ocean's final underworld plummets deeper still through great rifts etched by tectonic processes. These are the trenches, or the hadal pelagic. When it comes to unlocking their secrets, each of these zones poses a greater challenge than the last. But that hasn't stopped us from trying, with some success, and much still unknown. Since the late 20th century, manned and remotely operated vehicles have granted access to the deep ocean. Like this one. ROV Sebastian, a robot owned and operated by Schmidt Ocean Institute. It is the size of a small car, and depth rated to 4.5 kilometers, its range covers the entirety of the Midnight Zone. Controlled from the surface vessel via a tether, Sebastian shines a light on the deep and reveals a glimpse at the veiled expanse beneath the ocean surface. As the ROV descends into the Midnight Zone, we begin to encounter obscurities unlike anything observed near the surface. Some are so small that they are barely visible to the naked eye. And others are giants. This is a place of pure darkness, too deep for any light at all to penetrate. It's a harsh environment, where the large physical distance from the plankton that form the base of food webs limits the abundance of animals that the Midnight Zone can support. Life here must find a way to function in a cold, dark abyss, where temperatures do not exceed 4 degrees Celsius, and withstand extreme hydrostatic pressure that ranges from 100 atmospheres at the top of the zone to 400 at the bottom. In spite of these challenges, animals must make compromises and push their morphology and physiologies to the extreme in order to avoid predators, find food, and locate mates amidst a massive pitch-black void. And so, a set of surreal adaptations are employed. Soft bodies, like that of the cusk eel, can withstand the crushing pressures that would damage or kill most other creatures. Metabolisms are slowed dramatically. Time ticks to a slower tune here. It's the patient and the slow that grow old. Greenland sharks, belonging to the sleeper shark family, are known to live for centuries, 2,200 meters down in the cold depths of the Arctic Ocean, and growing longer than great whites, up to 7 meters. Like many animals down here, they exhibit a phenomenon called deep-sea gigantism, the tendency of deep-sea creatures to grow to sizes far exceeding those of their shallow water counterparts. Predators belong to a trophic niche you'd expect to be unsustainable in a place like this, where food is scarce enough already for the detritivores. So, to conserve energy, predators adopt sit-and-wait tactics, using the dark to their advantage. A comb jelly casts a net of tentacles lined not with stinging cells, but sticky collar blasts that capture prey like a spider's web. Strips of fine hair-like cilia run the length of the body and are beat synchronously, allowing the jelly to swim and refracting light in shimmering waves. They also produce light of their own from special cells called photocytes, bioluminescence, perhaps as a means of luring prey. A lobate comb jelly lacks sticky tentacles. It uses its cilia to create a feeding current, engulfing prey. While in the Twilight Zone, bioluminescence is used to hide, here, it instead gives a voice to the lonely wanderers of this midnight world. A female anglerfish wields a lure called an esker, filled with bioluminescent bacteria, and poised at the tip of a modified dorsal fin ray called an elysium. Encounters between anglerfishes happen so rarely that many have gone to extreme lengths to maximize their reproductive success. They exhibit exceptional sexual dimorphism. The males display no esker and are dwarfed in size by the females, yet possess large eyes and nostrils that allow them to detect the species-specific pheromones of the female. And once he finds her, a male will develop a pincer-like pair of denticles in his jaw and latch on permanently to the female's body. Their circulatory systems combine, and the male reduces to nothing more than a shriveled, sperm-producing sac, nourished and sustained by the female's blood. Efficiency is key in the ocean, and every aspect of an organism's anatomy and behavior is optimized to solve the challenges they face. Body shapes make a world of difference, depending on the environment they inhabit. In the sunlit waters of the high seas, predatory fish spend most of their lives on the hunt. Water is 800 times more dense and 50 times more viscous than air, making it a challenge to move through. For a predator, it helps to be streamlined, with a rigid forked tail like that of the tuna. This is a fusiform body type. It minimizes inertial drag and allows tuna to migrate more than 15,000 kilometers in a year, at times reaching 43 miles per hour. Fishes of the reef are compressed. They require agility, not speed, and so are flattened side to side for quick, accurate turns and darting among coral and rock. On the sandy sea floor, fish are flattened, with depressiform bodies. But what about here, in the ocean's midnight void? Food is too scarce to support streamlined predators. There is no rock to dart among for cover, nor any floor for miles. There are two body types that seem to dominate. Rounded globiform fish, like anglers, are suited not for sustained swimming, but floating in wait of prey to come within reach. Others, like the sawtooth eel, are elongate and flexible. Anguilliform. This form not only allows it to conceal its silhouette by hanging vertically when it ventures into twilight waters, but enables it to move in a series of sinuous waves that pass along the body and produce propulsive thrust for efficient swimming. The snipe eel moves in a similar way, but is thinner and more thread-shaped, with a body type known as filiform. The jaws of its bird-like beak curve away from each other at their tips, covered with tiny hooked backward-pointing teeth for trapping minute crustaceans like shrimp as it sweeps through the water, permanently agape. The snipe eel also boasts the most vertebrae of any animal on Earth, with more than 700 along its 1.5 meter long body. As fishes like these move, flexible throughout their entire length, the undulatory wave passes backward with increasing amplitude and speed, producing the highest propulsive thrust in the tail. It offers the most efficient method of locomotion in a place so starved of energy, without compromising on speed as the anglers have. Not being restricted to sit and wait tactics unlocks an assortment of feeding behaviours for anguilliform fishes. Like the oversized mouth of the gulper eel, it is larger than the rest of the body, and can be opened wide enough to scoop up shoals of shrimp or swallow animals much larger than itself. A pouch-like lower jaw holds the prey, while its stomach distends within to accommodate and digest the feast. There is a clear trend too in the colour of fishes here compared to the Twilight Zone. The shimmering silvery fishes are fewer, and instead, a host of dark brown or black fishes prevail. Many boast an adaptation called Ultra-Blackness, with a surface covered in melanosomes containing extraordinarily high concentrations of the pigment melanin that reflects, in some instances, less than 0.5% of the light that falls upon them. It's in stark contrast to the reflective guanine crystals that allow silvering in fishes of the Twilight Zone, where being so dark would only make their silhouettes stand out in the sun's residual glow. Down here, it's a superpower. Light organs located beneath each eye of this shiny loose-jawed dragonfish produce red bioluminescence that serves as a searchlight. Prey that are bright red in colour, which typically appear black down here, stick out like a sore thumb in the red glow. The black-bellied dragonfish forgoes ultra-blackness in favour of brassy bronze skin, using a bioluminescent barbell on its chin that acts like an angler's lure. The large, backward-facing teeth of the toothy viperfish are too large to fit inside its mouth, but they act like a cage, ensuring prey can't escape once captured. Its fangs are formed from crystal nanostructures so small that wavelengths of light pass through instead of scattering, rendering them invisible to prey. Adorning the undersides of dragonfishes are bioluminescent dots used for counter-illumination, matching any light above when seen from below. The Pacific blackchin Scopolengis tristis has only been filmed in its natural environment a small number of times. In many of these encounters, it remains motionless, perhaps to avoid being seen. Like the bronze dragonfish, its silvery scales only shine when illuminated by the lights of an underwater robot, but in the dark may scatter light and obscure the shape of the body. Very little is known about their life history, like many fishes that hail from such depths. Chimera is one of the oldest fish in the ocean. An ancient relative of sharks that diverged from a common ancestor 200 million years ago. Running along its entire length is a lateral line system resembling patchwork for sensing movements in nearby water. For every 10 meters we descend, pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. To survive, fish have evolved strengthened protein structures and more fluid cellular membranes that preserve their vital biological functions. For others, including many cephalopods, a soft, gelatinous body is all they need to overcome the pressure and maintain neutral buoyancy. Water cannot be compressed, so being composed primarily of water helps out down here. The Dumbo octopus flaps a pair of enlarged ear-like mantle fins to move gracefully, steering with webbed arms as it traverses the void. Reaching depths of 6,000 meters, it is the deepest living octopus of all. Pressure at the lower end of its range can be 600 times greater than at sea level, equivalent to the weight of 50 jumbo jets. Although, to us, the conditions of the deep appear extreme, the features that define a challenging environment are always relative. For many of the residents down here, the ocean's surface is an extreme environment, and the low pressure conditions of the shallows would prove lethal. Of the deep's eclectic tapestry of animals, the cephalopods are perhaps the most enigmatic. Displaying physiological, morphological, and behavioral modifications to become masters of this world. Each of them ethereal dancers, pushing the boundaries of adaptation to sculpt an existence uniquely their own. They dominate in a range of forms, displaying unusual appendages for feeding. The long, sticky feeding tentacles of the whiplash squid, Mastigopsis, are draped like fly paper into the water below, termed the tuning fork position, as it basks in a cloud of its own ink. When it's time to move on, the tentacles are retracted into membranous sheaths within the squid's arms. The large eye of the strawberry squid allows it to spy the silhouettes of animals above against the deep blues of the Twilight Zone. Today, it resides at the very bottom of this zone, at around 1,000 meters down, where a backdrop of fading light transitions to pitch black. It positions itself by turning or ratcheting its body, so that a second, smaller eye peers down into darkness, looking for luminous prey. Dimorphism in the eyes of bilateral animals is rare, and yet, for the strawberry squid, serves as a unique adaptation that allows it to carve out a niche in a place where resources are few, and competition is high. On the topic of resources, Brilliant has very kindly sponsored Natural World Facts. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. It's a learning platform designed to help you build understanding from the ground up, with lessons crafted by an award-winning team of researchers and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Microsoft, and more. One course I've loved is Scientific Thinking, which takes you on an interactive tour of our physical universe while gaining deep knowledge of scientific principles. Hands-on lessons will have you playing snooker to learn the rules of collision and planning your itinerary for an intergalactic music festival on a space-time diagram. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/naturalworldfacts or click the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Now let's journey back down into the depths. The boundaries of the ocean zones are not clear-cut. The Twilight and Midnight regions both belong to the Aphotic Zone, defined as the depths beyond which less than 1% of sunlight penetrates. A place often referred to as the Dark Ocean. While some animals are adapted to either the Twilight Zone, tailored to a place where light is diminished but not absent, or the Midnight Zone, swallowed by pitch black, others are able to span both. In such cases, it helps to be born with an invisibility cloak. Aside from the eyes, optic nerves, and a long, narrow digestive system, this glass octopus is almost entirely see-through. This one is a male. The small hook-like tip of one tentacle is a modified sexual organ called the hectococculus, used to pass sperm to the female. A mature female, reaching around 45 centimeters. Her body is speckled with color-producing cells called chromatophores that she uses for camouflage. Small muscles can expand to pull open the pigment sacs, darkening her body. It's the same mechanism behind the color-changing abilities of many other cephalopods, laid bare by a transparent body. In the Midnight Zone, the feeding behaviors of squids and octopuses differs greatly from those of twilight animals. Above, in the mesopelagic, life is fast-paced. owing to the higher abundance of prey. Squids here hunt in groups, swarming and inking to confuse schools of fish. Among the largest to do so are the Humboldt squid, launching tentacles lined with barbed suckers to grab silvery lanternfish. Scenes like this are a nightly occurrence in the Twilight Zone, initiated by the slightest changes in ambient light as the sun sets, calling forth great swarms of twilight fish that gather to migrate vertically under the cover of darkness. This phenomenon is one of the only reasons why large active hunters like Humboldt squid are able to sustain such an energetic lifestyle. In the Bathypelagic, you must be opportunistic to succeed. Schooling fish are few, but sinking organic debris is plentiful. Marine snow, the scraps left over from the feasts above. In a velvet cloak, the vampire squid dangles a long filamentous tentacle, covered in adhesive mucus to trap these fine particles. It is well suited to a place starved of not just food, but oxygen. Its blood contains a respiratory pigment, hemocyanin, that has the highest affinity for oxygen of any known cephalopod. Thus, the vampire squid can reduce competition from other detritivores by occupying the ocean's oxygen minimum zones. Reproducing in the midnight depths can be as challenging as feeding. A mother black-eyed squid hauls a clutch of more than 2,000 eggs through the ocean, held in membranous sacs that more than double her length at a depth of 2 kilometers. She will carry them for up to 9 months, clinging tightly with clawed hooks, and never letting go, not even to feed. It is a once-in-a-lifetime feat, and a perilous one. As the eggs mature and the mother weakens, her body begins to deteriorate and her muscles waste away. Unable to jet away, she is an easy target for predators. Swimming is a burden, yet essential. Through her movements, the mother flushes water through the eggs and oxygenates them. If she survives the last few months, her final act of motherly love won't have been in vain, her sacrifice bearing new life as the young embark on their own journeys through the void. Even so, it's unknown just how many from her clutch of thousands will survive to brood eggs of their own. Of the more than 700 cephalopods known to science, the black-eyed squid is one of just a few that dare to carry their progeny through the dark. But they're not the only single parents. a barrel amphipod, or phronima, carves out a gelatinous protective home from the carcass of a salp. Imagine a squirrel taking over the corpse of a cat. She repurposes the body as a mobile home and nurtures her offspring on the lingering remnants of flesh. Some larvae must brave the dark alone, like this benthic lobster larvae. Or Leptocephalus, the transparent larval form of elopomorphs. One of the most diverse taxonomic groups of fish, containing tarpons, bonefish, and all known eels. More than 800 species of fish begin their lives this way, feeding on sinking particles of marine snow. Some remain at this life stage for more than a year before they metamorphose. Generally, the more complex a structure or environment, the more biodiversity it's able to support. But in deep midwaters, where there are no structures at all and no solid surfaces, the only form of shelter to be found is other animals. Large organisms become drifting arks, lifeboats hosting a troop of smaller animals. Some are simply hitchhikers. The crustaceans on this blob-top jelly cause little harm or hindrance to the host, yet they benefit by securing a hiding place. Others are parasites, like these amphipods feeding on a salp. This pelican eel sports a parasitic copepod that has wrapped itself around the internal organs and pierced the digestive tract with barbed mouthparts. The two streamer-like structures that trail behind it are strings of eggs. Within the bag-like bell of a shape-shifting Deepstaria jelly, an Anuropus amphipod eats away at its host's delicate skin. It must strike a careful balance, ensuring it doesn't overindulge, or it risks eating itself out of its hiding place. Deepstaria is unusual among jellies, belonging to a group known as the ulmarids, many of which lack true tentacles. As a result, it feeds in an unusual manner, engulfing prey, before pulling the opening of its bell closed like a drawstring bag. Its digestive system adorns the bell in a mesh-like pattern, spread thin to distribute nutrients across its great surface. Other ulmarids without tentacles have developed their own feeding strategies. The big red jelly, Tiburonia, has a bell like a beach ball and stubby finger-like arms, lined all over with tiny wart-like concentrations of stinging cells. The giant phantom jelly, Stygiomedusa gigantea, has arms like curtains that can reach 10 meters in length, draped through the water column. This is the largest of the ulmarids, and one of the largest of all known jellyfish in the ocean. Sometimes found as deep as 6,700 meters in the ocean's hadal zone. The arms are thought to lack stinging cells altogether, and are used to swathe and engulf prey within the enormous bell, which it can expand by up to 5 times. The phantom jelly participates in another form of ecological relationship. It forms a partnership with a fish called a pelagic brochula, seen here, orienting to the jelly's surfaces. The great bell of Stygiomedusa provides shelter for the fish, which in turn removes parasites from the surface of its protector. Studies into this relationship have found evidence that this fish can return to its partner if separated, for its body is lined with specialized neuromasts, sensory organs, highly sensitive to low-frequency water movements, like those created by the pulsing of the Medusa's bell. In a sense, they work together through a mutualistic symbiotic association. It's a way of life shared by countless pairings throughout the natural world. In the ocean depths, the collaborative confluence of life through symbiosis is especially important, for the perils of this great expanse pose a challenge for all. However, the jellyfish and other gelatinous organisms appear to have mastered this place. They are almost perfectly adapted to a three-dimensional watery world, without structure, beyond the reach of time. One of very few animal groups helped and not hindered by the lack of complexity. In this void, the plasticity of their basic morphology means they can grow to extraordinary sizes and take on a multitude of shapes that allow them to move and hunt in ways other more complicated animals cannot. The life cycles of deep-sea gelatinous organisms are still largely unknown. While some survive the expanse by finding shelter in others, there is one group that seems to have found the solution to being tiny in a place so vast. Siphonophores. This is not truly a single organism. It is closer to a colony, a modular being composed of tiny individuals called zooids. These are each clones, genetically identical, but their functions and anatomy are altered through mutations so that different zooids specialize and take on specific tasks to ensure the survival of all. Along a central stem, these zooids attach, confined to set regions where they remain and carry out their role. Gastrozoids are the feeding polyps. These zooids each dangle a tentacle for capturing and digesting food, and nourish the other zooids via the stem. Ctenophores resemble tiny jellyfish. These zooids are the swimming bells responsible for coordinating the movement of the entire colony. On the tip, a gas-filled float called a pneumatophore aids buoyancy. Those that bear all three structures are physonect siphonophores. One of three suborders, each defined by a distinct body plan. The second are the calicophorans, possessing just two ctenophores and no pneumatophore. This is the giant siphonophore, Praia dubia, one of the longest animals in the ocean, reaching 50 meters. Cysternects possess a float and a long stem of gastrozoids, but lack swimming bells. Resembling little more than frayed rope, drifting only at the mercy of the currents. This siphonophore is about to do something bizarre. It casts off portions of its own colony, splitting its stem in several places. We don't yet fully understand why. It might be dying, its structure deteriorating, but it seems too purposeful. Perhaps it's shedding weight to increase its speed and flee. Perhaps it's cloning itself, forming new colonies from the fragments. The portion that retains the nectosome swims away. The cast portions can only sink. Their zooids are still alive, but without any means of locomotion, it's uncertain for how long they will endure. Whether or not these fragments will grow new Ctenophores remains a mystery. In another colony, a great cloud of zooids appear to shed and break away one by one. More than likely, these shed zooids will die. It's thought to be a defense mechanism, a reaction to the lights of the underwater robot to distract from the central colony. Gelatinous animals are so successful that they may account for as much as 40% of the biomass of the water column, a fact that eluded the scientific community until recent decades, when submersibles and remotely operated vehicles at last allowed us to witness the lives of deep-sea animals with our own eyes. The deep sea is, without a doubt, alien to us. This great void extending far beneath the surface, and at the very bottom, a place resembling another planet, colonized by the bizarre and beautiful. But there are parallels with the places we might visit in our everyday lives that just might help us to understand it. Take, for example, the forest. The cycles of life, death, and nutrients are distilled here. The trees in life provide structure and complexity, like the corals and sponges of deep seamounts or the giant jellies of the midwater. All of them a place of shelter for life. There are layers here too. The sun-bathed canopy, like the ocean's epipelagic zone, the sunlight zone, is where the majority of photosynthesis takes place. Sunlight energy being converted into chemical energy, food that through death falls down, down, down through subsequent layers to nourish those living underneath. Very little goes to waste here. The rotting deadwood and leaf litter provides homes and a niche for countless detritivores, whose entire evolutionary histories tailored their form and physiology to survive on this stuff. And in the deep sea, just like here, it's the detritivores that triumph. They cycle nutrients through food webs. After death, they sink and provide a modest feast to the deep sea floor. Each year, jellyfish alone are thought to sequester 2 billion metric tons of carbon away from the atmosphere. This is Pelagothuria. It's not a jellyfish or a siphonophore, but a sea cucumber, related to starfish and urchins that feeds on marine snow. Modified tube feet form a ring of feeding tentacles around the mouth and are used to capture and bring debris towards the central orifice. It is the only member of its genus and the only known species of truly pelagic sea cucumber, spending its entire life in the water column. Others spend only part of their life swimming. Enypniastes eximia, dubbed the headless chicken monster. Not all sea cucumbers can swim, but the ones that do form a crucial link between the midnight expanse and the ocean bottom beneath. At the bottom of the midwater, we reach the intersection of two worlds of the deep, where from the formless void at last emerges structure. The deep sea floor. A world shaped over millions of years by unique geological processes, carving ridges and chasms, crafting subsea mountain ranges adorned by colourful gardens, flourishing cities of coral and sponge. And on the plains beyond, a great desert where animals work the sediments. A community of burrowers, roamers, hitchhikers, and bottom feeders. Etching trails in the ancient silt beds. And scattered boneyards, where great gatherings of scavengers convene to feast on the remains of giants. This is a territory of obscurities, kept secret and concealed away in the dark at the bottom of the ocean's void. The deep sea plains cover more than half the surface of the Earth, hosting their own anthology of tales of life in the deep.